Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life After the Military, a show completely focused on reversing the trend of veteran suicide, homelessness, and problematic transitions by helping veterans transition from military to civilian life and strengthening the mental fitness of our active duty military members, veterans, and their families. Our show is powered by Pivotal Moments Media, an organization on a mission to strengthen mental fitness worldwide for all. Go check them out at pivotalmomentsmedia.com to learn more. My name is Lee Elias, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host, Howie Cohen. And we are privileged to have Don Gleason and Matt Scherer, who led the Military Transition Roundtable, with us today. Don served for over 27 years in the United States Air Force as a civil engineer, and Matt served for over 20 years in the U.S. Air Force in the public affairs, media, and community relations fields. Don transitioned out of the Air Force in 2009, and Matt transitioned out of the Air Force in 1997. And they both have very extensive and deep sets of experiences in the private sector since their transitions from the military. Don and Matt, both highly successful entrepreneurs, also have their own companies. Don started Achieve New Heights in 2017, and Matt started Scherer Communications in 2005. Don and Matt also serve as the president and vice president, respectively, of the Military Transition Roundtable, something that we'll discuss shortly. Don, Matt, welcome to Life After the Military.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
You both served magnificently in the U.S. military for a combined 47 plus years. Share with the audience how you prepared and executed your transition out of the military to the private sector. What went well? What didn't go well? What would you do differently, knowing what you know now?
I don't want to use solid language, but it wasn't the best of the experiences. I helped establish the first transition program at Lowery Air Force Base in 1992. They saw the need, and then in the course of time, an organization called the Department of Labor took it over, and it became death by PowerPoint. And so there really wasn't a lot of assistance, and there really hasn't been a lot of change in that regard. In some ways, the biggest challenge I had is finding people in the community to work as mentors and advisors. And not only that, but also to have the skill that I now have to help people I have as mentors and advisors to provide value to them. That's the biggest thing I see as a challenge, is finding the mentors and then following through. And trust me, and Don will tell you this, when I'm working with people, I make sure they follow through on things.
My transition was a little bit easier. I did the executive TAP twice since I was a colonel at the time. I did it when I was a group commander at Offutt in 2006. And then I did it again the summer of 2008 when I was at the Pentagon. And the second time it really resonated with me was, what do I want to do next? I was really thinking back into what I wanted to do when I transitioned. I was a civil engineer, civil and environmental engineer. It goes back to the 5th grade, first Earth Day in 1970. I wanted to be involved in environmental. I wanted to clean up America's waters. My dad would take us out on Lake Michigan all day long fishing. We would go hunting in Southwest Wisconsin. I'd hunt with friends in North Central Wisconsin. And I loved to be outside. But you would see the pollution, you'd see the trash, you would see all kinds of stuff. And as I got older, what excited me was environmental. And I followed that emotion and was looking at companies that did that. Now, Matt was talking about the connections with professionals. So if I can turn just a little bit here, there's a banner right behind me, Society of American Military Engineers, SAME. It's a cooperative government civilian company organization. And one of the things they do is help military. But I had all kinds of connections with retired colonels and some general officers and even SESs, general officer level civilians. And they were in different companies. And I did a lot of informational interviews. In fact, December of the summer before I retired, they all get together in San Antonio. And I was on the air staff, so I came down and I had my resume ready and I had my business card. And I just let everybody know, this is me coming out of the military next summer. And I would like to have some conversations with you. So I started to have all kinds of informational interviews. And that's exactly what Matt and I talk about right now, is get involved in a professional organization. Not MOA, not Sergeants Association, not Air Force Association. Those are good. And maybe you'll get some civilian connections, but think about professional organizations on the outside that are going to connect you with people in those companies so you can understand it. So the eTAP twice, the focus in on what do I really want to do next? What's in here, right? The heart. What's in here that really will drive me and motivate me? And that's where I jumped into environmental. And then it was talking to all those other folks to really understand what they did. So I think that really helped me through it. I was trying to think of challenges because it did go so well. And that's probably what drives me now, is it went so well that I want others to go well. I mean, I stayed with Booz Allen for 9 years. Syracuse University Veterans Center says their survey back in like 2015 says that 45% of military leave their first post-military job within 12 months. That's 1 out of every 2. And then I'm hearing other studies now saying it's 2 out of every 3, 67%. So I'm in that small number that said I stayed for 9 years. So what did I do different? I
Right.
focused in on value.
What you had was a purpose immediately. We talk about problematic transition, and the common theme of what's lost when our active duty transition to veteran status is loss of a team, loss of a mission, and purpose-driven work. And it sounds like you had an understanding of, I need a purpose when I leave. Now, with that said, it's not snap your fingers and you'll have a purpose. It doesn't work that way for everybody. I think that understanding of, hey, what do I value? As you said, what are my values? What is a realm or an industry that shares those values? That's a really good starting point. It's not just, and we've seen this on the show so many times, hey, I stopped on Friday, I started work on Monday. It doesn't work that way in any realm of society, any transition. We talk about this with military, athletics, college to regular life. It doesn't work on a snap. There's a mental side of this, and that's why the show exists. I had to dive in. I think at least from my point of view, that's what I think is the difference.
Spot on.
He prepared and he owned the process. The folks I see who have successful transitions are the ones who take responsibility for their transition. Now, part of that is asking for help, because those of us who were transitioning from the military, we don't know how to do that. Right. There's a number of things Don did. He spent time and invested time networking. And I hope you caught this concept of informational interviews, right? I've heard people refer to it as a cup of coffee with people. The point is, he took the time to network with the folks who had recently got out of the military and leveraged their lessons learned. What went well for them? What did not go well for them? What would they do differently? And he used that to also identify what he wanted to do. I think the biggest challenge many of us face when we get out of the military is we don't know what the hell we want to do. And many times we take the easy route and we just do what we were doing in the military. We just do it in a different uniform. Because I went right into government contracting. And that may or may not have been the right choice for me. But the point is, I took the easy route because I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. So number one, he owned the process. Number two, he conducted informational interviews. Number three, he divined very quickly what he wanted to do. And those informational interviews help you do that. And you chose to make your hiring decision based on a culture and a core set of values that were consistent with how you operated. You made a great hiring choice.
I wanted to interview with environmental companies, and the pressure I had from my peers was like, no, you got to interview with everybody. You got to make yourself a jack of all trades. Right. I said, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to do design. I don't want to do construction. I've never had, don't want to now. I want to do environmental. So I cut that out.
That's another piece of great advice, right? Is focus as quickly as you possibly can, narrow down the field so that you can now spend your time and energy on the things that will benefit you, benefit your family.
Yeah, and I want to give kudos to Matt here, because when he works with people on LinkedIn, one of the first things he does is work with them on the banner photo. He works with them on the why.
I just finished talking to a bunch of folks from the Goodwill industry, and one of the people had a banner which showed the downtown San Antonio. I said, do you work for the city of San Antonio? No. What do? You work in workforce development. So let's be thinking about ways to express it. It's that blank banner that you have an opportunity to express. And the thing that Don was talking about is having a pretty good idea of what you want to do is the starting point. But sometimes there are people that really don't want to do what they did in the Air Force or the Army. They'll do it just to pay the bills, but they won't be happy with it.
I did government contracting for 8 years, and I got to the point where I was reasonably good at it, but I will tell you, I didn't enjoy it. This is a mistake I made. I took the easy way out.
You know, Howie, I think the thing of it is that, especially enlisted types, because you're talking about difference in ranks. I'm retired Air Force NCO, Don's retired officer. We have a different perspective on things even today. Your typical enlisted guy, they will do anything to stay hired. They're used to a standard of living, and if that's going to give them a standard of living, so be it. And that explains why people are changing jobs, because the culture didn't fit, the job didn't fit. They're unhappy. They're unhappy with the job. They're in a position where the meeting starts at 8 o'clock and they're at 7:45, and they're upset when people roll in at 15 minutes after the hour. And so it's all little things that we address in the Military Transition Roundtable to say, you're not alone.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
culture shift that people have to fix.
Don, you mentioned that you worked for Booz Allen Hamilton, and I did notice that it was 9 years, which told me right there that you put the time and effort into planning and executing your transition, and you picked a good company to work for. And maybe you can share with folks who are considering government contracting as a possible career, what you learned, what helped you be successful there, help them identify if that's the right career field for them or not.
I was able in the interview process to interview the two bosses I was going to work for. One was great at business development. One was really good at leading teams and communicating. And I got to know both of them, and I said I could work for these guys. What was interesting was about the 3 or 4 year point, I met another principal, and I was like, wow, I hope I don't work for them. And then I ended up working for them. And that was painful. That was painful for about a year. And finally I said, it's time for me to leave. And I found another opportunity within the company. I had been networking within the company. So one of the first things I was going to tell you is you got to control your own career within the company. It doesn't mean you have to leave the company. If you like the company and you like the values, figure out, maybe what else you could do. So I jumped on a Department of Energy project, which meant traveling almost every week for 3.5 years. I was literally out on Sunday afternoon, back on Thursday or Friday, at least once or twice a month. I had apartments up in Amarillo and then later on in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which was nice to have an apartment up there, but it was away from, my wife was empty nester sitting back here at home. And that kind of got into me. But you had to control your own career, is figure out who you could work with. And that ended up being my demise, because I ended up not thinking about it after the Department of Energy job. When I wanted to come back to San Antonio, I had stopped networking back here because I thought, I had the good relationship, it's no problem. But when I was ready to come back, the jobs were all gone. They were all filled. I had nothing to come back to, and ended up leaving the company. But I think the other thing is, people, and stop me and jump in at any time here, billability is a big issue. We're not used to that in the military. And that makes people think as they're coming in is that, the company's just all about money. Well, the company can't exist if it doesn't make money, if it doesn't make a profit. And so you got to worry about billability of your people, and so that they're serving the client, so they make the money back to be able to fund the company and what the company wants to stand for. Because everybody wants to do philanthropy out of the company. And that comes from somewhere. So I would say get people to realize why billability. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. But it is pressure.
I think the lesson learned here is, if you are even thinking about going into government contracting, do what Don suggested, conduct those informational interviews, find out what folks are learning about the process, be a student of the process. You've got the Defense Acquisition University out of Fort Belvoir is another great resource that you can turn to for classes and certifications and so on and so forth, that you can take and learn about the process prior to your getting out, that will better position you to be very successful in the government contracting. I want to highlight that Don said, is nobody will manage your career better than you. It's about taking responsibility and owning the process, right?
I took accountability before in my transition. And on day 2 with Booz Allen, I started thinking, what are my goals? I'm a pretty good speaker, pretty good writer, pretty good leader, I understand finances, but I don't understand the Booz Allen financial way, or the Booz Allen business development way, or how do you write proposals, or all those different pieces. So I wrote down a list. I presented it to my boss on the 3rd day, and I said, here's a development plan that I'm thinking about. It was interesting. He said, it's my job to develop.
Interesting. Good.
I said, okay, where do you want to start, right? And I didn't get anything. So I went out and I started making connections with the company, and I connected with each of those people, and I started doing stuff. And my boss walks in the office one day and he goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm just working on different things to learn the process. I got it because when the task orders turned around, it was 5 days from release to proposal being submitted. It's quick. And it was 24 hours. And you would work with the client all day, and you would work proposal all night. And you'd wear yourself out. So anything I could learn up front, And it did. It eased the process. But again, owning my career within the company, learning the things I thought I needed to learn, not expecting other people.
That's such great advice and mentoring. Matt, I'm going to turn to you. It became so clear to me the wealth of experience that you have in the communications, the public and media relations field, community relations. I think you could really help folks in our audience that are going through the transition process, maybe some guidance on how they can better market themselves.
Got a couple thoughts there, Howie. First thing is, we'll go back to what Don said about joining outside groups. Well, it's one thing to join your Air Force Sergeant Association and Chief Petty Officer Association. Those are great organizations, but you're really not helping yourself reach outside the military base by not considering a volunteer. It can be something as simple as being a volunteer at your local school PTA. That's pretty easy, but really takes a lot of depth to join a Rotary Club or join a Chamber of Commerce or a professional organization to meet other people that have similar interests. I would tell you that if you were in the military and your transition is 2 or 3 years out, now's the time to start making those inquiries into how I can volunteer in the community. The other thing I find with volunteer work is you find out the kind of people you like to work with. Because in the military, they tell you you're going to work with, and you got to adjust to that team. In the community, there's no golden rule for team building. So you can figure for yourself, hey, I like these kind of people. I like this person. Maybe this person is going to be a good mentor for me. Maybe this person is going to be someone that can advise me. Maybe they're going to open doors for me. So that would be the first thing I would say. And the second thing is, when you talk to people, and this is where I made my mistake, is I should have gotten my degree in marketing as I was getting. That was one of my big handicaps. It wasn't until I got my degree that I actually leveled the playing field. So I tell people, if you're thinking about transition, especially regardless if you're an enlisted officer, but I want to focus on you, the enlisted guy. Guess what? You have tremendous opportunities to get technical skills. To your point, talking about the fair acquisition university there at that base, that would be a starting point. If that's what you want to do, then reach out and take advantage of those opportunities, as many opportunities as you can, because it'll help you define what you want to do when you leave the military. Now, those are the two biggest things I would tell you that I would recommend to people. And of course, then using LinkedIn to find those opportunities as well. It was all about building the network and helping people see the opportunities. So I saw the opportunities when I was at Lowery Air Force Base, and then the Air Force said, guess what, Matt, you're going to Naples, Italy. Okay, talk about a change in latitude, change in attitude. But even then, I did some community service work there as well. So it's all up to you, military member, to go out and find those opportunities. And the quicker you can do that, the better it is. Even if you're 10 years away, I would start joining professional organizations like Rotary, or look at ways to join the chamber, because it'll give you an idea of what you really can.
You're talking about, when it comes to transition, the person, the type of person that you are. And look, I remember when my wife was serving, and as a spouse, we always like to say the word, we were voluntold to do things, right? And one of the things about the military, and don't get me wrong, to accomplish the mission, the joint mission, that it has to be the way it is. There's no other way to do it, all right? Even I understand that. But when you're out, I wrote this down. It's not what you do, it's who you do it with.
Yeah.
And you just brought up a great point. Now, I live that. That's a big belief of mine. It's not what I'm doing, it's the people I do it with. In the military, you're right. You don't really have that choice. You're just kind of thrown in. It's very much, it's what you do, and you're doing it with these people. That's kind of the military. But for the transitioning members, you do have that choice. And I'll tell you what, I have worked jobs that the work was where I wanted to be. It was the peak of where I wanted to be, and the people were horrendous. I'd rather take garbage out with my best friend every day, because at least I'd be having a good time. I like to tell the transitioning military members, if you get into something and you hate it, and you thought that was something you were going to like, that's a blessing. Now you don't like it. So stop doing it and turn another direction. There's nothing wrong with that. I think, though, that, again, when you're in the military, especially if you've been in for a long time, it's tough to look at it like that, right? No, I have to accomplish this. That's my mission. The mission is to be happy after you transition. The mission is to be confident and to have a good life. All right. And you do not have to force yourself to do something that you don't want to do. And I don't want to say something like failure is an option, but growing is an option. I've told this story before. I had to remind my wife, and it's funny for me as a spouse, but you can quit a job if you don't like it once you transition out. I'm not talking about the military now.
Yeah.
The thought never even crossed her head. The light bulb went off when I said that to her of, oh yeah, I can leave a job if I don't like it. I'm going to call them strength barriers because they really are actually really good parts of your personality. You just have to shift them a little bit after the transition. But again, rounding this out, both of you gentlemen are talking about focusing on you as a person, your needs, your wants, your goals, your dreams. And then obviously the family plays into that massively. And you're not accustomed to doing that in the military. It's not really the way it's run. And that's okay. That's part of the big mental shift that I've been learning from these episodes is, okay, I have to look at this a different way. That's fair.
But
we
but
can't
hey,
hear
listen,
anything. So you know.
here there is something that Matt said that I really, and Don said it as well, and that's joining these professional organizations or any kind of an organization. Listen, let me tie this back to the high rate of veteran suicide, homelessness, and problematic transitions. The number one thing that contributes to them is the loss of a sense of community. When we're in the military, we're part of a community. I think the mistake is that becomes their identity. The other thing is when we're in the military, we have a sense of purpose. And when you get out of the military, you lose that sense of purpose. So the things that Don and Matt are talking about is the quicker, the sooner, the more effectively you replace that community, that military community with other communities, you are going to be on much better footing to then have a successful and low stress transition while you're on active duty and build that out and strengthen it. And that'll smooth out your transition when you get out of the military. The high rate of veteran suicide, the number one cause based on research and data collected by the Department of Veteran Affairs is problematic transitions. When you lose that sense of community, when you lose that sense of purpose, and then you have trouble finding a job, now you have financial stress. And what typically happens is veterans start to look to dull the pain with alcohol, with drugs, and they get into this downward spiral that they cannot climb out of. And they ultimately look to dull the pain by taking their lives. So what Matt and Don are talking about right now are ways that you can avoid that, or you may see others who are in that downward spiral that maybe you can help them out of.
Matt was talking about getting into an association 3 years prior, 2 to 3 years prior. And I think there's an important piece of that from a mindset piece. We talk about people, when they join that association 3 months before they get out, they don't want to network because they fear they're asking for something.
They don't want to ask people questions. They just want to blend in the background and they just want to be contributors. The real art form is to go from just being, oh shucks, that's nothing, to this is pretty significant. I did something pretty significant. Right behind me is the proclamation from the mayor of Denver. And I normally don't tell people about that. And a friend of mine, Mark Overberg, said, Matt, you should be damn proud of what you did there. So, well, I think military guys, they contribute well, they do things well in the community, but they don't take credit for the accomplishments they make. I think that's where the being part of the civic organizations, because they're outside the military parameters, will help you recognize your skills and your talents.
I also have to say on this real quick, as a civilian, as someone who's worked in the private sector mostly, but was completely mentored by military people, the civilian world does not operate in the selfless manner that the military does. All right. I don't know how else to say that nicely. And this isn't true of all civilian, but the civilian marketplace very much operates on what I've done, right? This is what I've done. As a transitioning military member, you can both be humble and a servant leader. My wife has had issues with this. Even I, just coming from that nature, had problems with it. And I had to learn how to
Lee,
sell
come
myself.
on, man. You never had problems with that.
I did.
I know
Howie.
you well enough that you never had problems with that.
In hockey, maybe not, but in business, I really did have to learn how to sell myself. I was underselling myself as a professional for many years. You just said is you got to learn how to take those compliments. You got to learn how to coexist in that marketplace.
One of the best things I learned in TS, Officer Training School, was, to survive out of there was, this is a game. They're doing things to you to see how you react and to get you to understand the process, right? Why did we have to ground all of our socks in just the right way in the drawer? It's a game of how they're training you. We're so focused on the mission. We're so focused on the team that we don't think about us. So then when we do come out, because of that loyalty, we won't focus on ourselves until the very end. And then when we get into networking, you don't want to ask for yourself. So you're very uncomfortable. And I think the benefit of getting in a couple of years early is you get in and you serve, and then they want to help you.
Right.
So you don't even have to ask.
It's a great way of
It
looking
becomes
at
a
it.
mutual
Yeah.
beneficial.
Yeah.
But it's mindset piece. And then the company is going to train you in the way they do business. So we learned how the military does business. We learned how to survive out of boot camp or whatever to get out. You got to learn how to survive in the civilian market. And it's all that back to that piece of mindset again. And I think it's interesting. I don't know why I didn't feel that loss of identity so much when I got out, but I think it was because I zipped back to 5th grade, my environmental focus through.
Well, Don, my guess is that
the military happened to be where I did that.
I think that's a challenge that a lot of veterans face is they've allowed the military to be their total identity. And that's when it becomes a problem.
Exactly.
You did not do that. You were Don Gleason, of which part of your identity was the military, but you had many other parts that defined you. I would love for both of you to talk about the Military Transition Roundtable, what you're doing, how you're helping folks, how our transitioning veterans can be a part of that.
One thing we do is the DISC personality assessment. And we help people really understand themselves from a personality and behavior perspective. And Matt and I are different. I'm an SC, which is very teamwork, collaborative, resist conflict, very analytical. Matt is very D, and he's a D&I, very take charge, focused on results. It creates a little conflict, but it also, we complement each other's strengths and downplay everybody's weaknesses. And I think there's some pieces there that we do as we help people understand themselves and go through the process.
Talk about 2 different personalities, and yet we've been together for 2 years. And the military guys have the freedom when they get out to know who they want to work for. In the military, you got what you were given. You get a new commander, you adjust the new commander. You get a new sergeant major, you adjust that new sergeant major. What I think we do very well is help people understand what they're looking for. Like you were saying before, Leah, you're doing a great job, but the people were really terrible. You start to recognize those things, and we help them understand what they want in terms of people they want to work with and the job they want to work for. And so we've had a lot of discussions within our very group where people said, I've had this job offer, but it's not what I wanted. Guess what, Bob? You're really talented. You should go back, and here's how you make an informed conversation with that person about what you're really worth. So these are the things that this personality assessment and all the other things that we work together. We help people build a team. We help people build a network. Right now, there's 2 or 3 people within our group that are really solid networkers. And that's a skill that's not really easy for people to accomplish.
People got frustrated. Matt and I were sitting 2+ years ago at an event, and the CEO said, don't transition alone. And what she meant was, we got plenty of resources to help you. Let us know what you need and we can give you resources. And Matt and I had been talking to somebody in Australia. Matt had the connection through his network about the mastermind, right? A mastermind is 8 to 10 people coming together for a common purpose. So you don't have to transition alone. So we saw that don't transition alone differently. It wasn't about resources. There's plenty of resources. It's about having people together in your community to work with and talk to, and exactly what Matt's talking about. We love it when all of a sudden everybody in our group is talking in and outside of the group. The chat window is going crazy because people are giving each other connections and resources, and hey, let's get together and talk about that problem. And they're working together to help each other through the process. And that's what that's what we're bringing that is different. We're just facilitating a process to get people together. And it's the power of the group, the knowledge, the experience, the network that really helps everybody through it. And then when they see it, they make the comments, they say, I thought I was the only one who was having this problem. I see it.
Research shows that your likelihood of success in establishing new positive habits increases by 500% when you partner with an accountability group. 500%. So again, all the resources, as you both said, can be there, but when you have an accountability group or just people going through it, you have a 500% chance more of succeeding in whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish together.
And to tie the results are, it almost ties back to that. So I said earlier, 45 to 65% of military leave their first job within the first 12 months. We've been tracking our people who've been out for 12 months, and we're running 12 to 15% are leaving their first job. So they're finding that culture. They're finding, because we spend that time. What kind of job do you want? What's your role? What kind of people you want to work with? And we network with them and coach them through, how do you say, counsel them almost as they're going through the negotiation phases. Is this really what you're looking for? Define it for me. I had a gentleman last week I was working with 4-Block, and I said, write out your perfect job description for me. And he took the week to do it. He's chief master sergeant. And he says, wow, that just really helped me understand what I want.
To Lee's point, there's success in changing habits and perceptions in the mastermind group because other people have similar issues. Like yesterday, we were talking about time management. You think that's just a routine thing, but it's not. It is, I'm running a business. I got my daughter just joined me. So how do I deal with that? So that was a point we took for 15 minutes yesterday, just because it was out there and people need those kind of skills.
If you want to be successful at something, the best thing you can do is find the people who've achieved that level of success and you go meet and talk with them, right? And you learn from them how to achieve that success. This is a mistake that a lot of us make, is we are who we hang around. How do folks get into the Military Transition Roundtable?
What we do is we like to talk to every person before we ask them to join, because we found there's occasionally a small percentage of people that are not very successful with this, and we can identify them by just a really basic coaching session. So I'll talk to them about a couple of things about their profile, and I'll give them a free banner just to get started. And you can usually tell just from there how coachable they are. So unfortunately, there's been 1 or 2 people that are just like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, can't do it, don't want to do it. We're just going to say, well, thanks, it's nice meeting you. And so that's a rare occasion when we do that, but we invite anybody that shows the interest. And usually the people that reach out to us have gumption. They want it, they know they've got a transition and they're doing what they can to help themselves.
You can reach us at Matt@militarytransitionroundtable.com, Don@militarytransitionroundtable.com. You can go to our website, transitionroundtable.com, and you can find a connection. We both have Calendly links that after you send us a note, we'll connect with you and schedule. And then we'll have that conversation with you. And if they're coachable and teachable, we invite them to come and try it out, right? Because the group may not be for everybody. Some people don't need accountability. It's not for everybody. But so come try it out. We want people to be thinking transition 2 to 3 years out. But how can we get you into what we talked earlier? The mindset shift, the what next, the networking, the professional association.
Matt invited me to a little bit of a quote unquote coaching session where he helped me improve my profile on LinkedIn, which was just a phenomenal session. Next thing I know, he's inviting me to the Military Transition Roundtable, which I was very appreciative of too. So I guess I was coachable, Matt, huh?
Our coachable, Howie.
There you go.
This is how Howie sells himself. He's learned to do that over the last few years. You had said a little bit earlier, about 12% of the people that come to Roundtable change jobs within a year. Do you look at that number as a fail rate, and why or why not?
Great question. First of all, failure is a path to process. It's a path to success. Failure is part of the process. I guess we look at that number as success because instead of 45 to 65, it's only 12. Is it failure that still 12 to 15% are? I'm going to say no, because it's never going to be perfect. You're going to do an interview, you're going to get in with a company, you're going to think everything's right. And then either it wasn't what it showed out to be, or they may change something, right? I was going to say earlier, at the 3 or 4 year point, I ended up changing to that principle I mentioned that we didn't connect. I was literally waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, having nightmares and sweating, and just, I can't work with this person anymore. I just can't do this. So I was either going to leave the company or find something else in the company. I like the company. So there's going to be those things that are going to happen. It's not going to get to zero, but if we can drive it down and get people to purposely think up front, Think and Grow Rich. It's all about what you desire, you become about. What you think, you become. That's the big premise.
I actually think your failure rate is at 0, and I'll tell you why. Because if 12% of people realize, hey, I don't want to do this, I need to make a change, that is not failure. In fact, you may have helped them understand, okay, no, I know these signs are not correct. So if you're getting 88% of people in a job they like and 12 going, hey, you know what, I don't really like this, I need to make a change. To me, that's success across the board. Failure would be, I hate this job, I hate these people, but I got to gut it out because that's what my brain's telling me to do. To me, that would be, barring financials and other things, that would be a failure. So I think that even when you mentor men and women, if they decide or discover that, hey, this actually isn't what I was looking for, that's not failure. So that's my perception of it, gentlemen. I just wanted you to know that. I think it's tremendous work that you're doing. I
Thank
think
you.
that the fact that there is a roundtable and people can find it, and we will put all those links in this, it's tremendous. That is the shift that has to happen. And it's funny, Matt, you said earlier how it became death by PowerPoint when you were coming out. Now we have roundtables, we have mentorship groups. That's the shift in the mental side of this that is happening. We have not accomplished this. We're nowhere near close to what we need to be, but that has to happen to take those steps forward to reduce that number that we hate.
We're very successful and we're below the norms. And to your point, we help people find the job they want, and they recognize that this isn't right for them. And so
right. You enrich lives, gentlemen. That's what you do. You enrich lives of fellow service people. And again, I always say we have to serve those that serve us. I'm saying that from a civilian military spouse point of view, but I don't think there's a higher calling than that. And that's why I'm so honored to do the show with you and Howie. And you say you are who you surround yourself with. I always look at these podcasts and I say, wow, look at these amazing people that I get to spend my time with. And thank goodness for digital technology.
Matt and Don, you're going to get an invitation to come back on this show because there are a number of things that we just don't have time to get to today that I think are so absolutely critical for us to get out there to our audience. You're both exceptional men who are doing absolutely incredible work to help transitioning veterans, spouses, military family members. And I don't say this lightly. It's not just about helping them transition. It's helping them have successful lives. You are saving lives. Matt is the guy who helped me redefine what my purpose in life was. And that was through one of these coaching sessions that we had. So thank you, fellas, for being here today, for sharing your thoughts, your ideas, your perspective. Unbelievable gems you are dropping throughout this episode.
So you've been listening to Life After the Military, which is powered by Pivotal Moments Media. If you did, like us, subscribe to us, rate us on Apple Podcasts, share it with others to help get the word out. You can learn more about our organization, Pivotal Moments Media, at pivotalmomentsmedia.com. Check it out. We have other channels that focus on overcoming adversity in sports, how inspirational women inspire other women, building mental fitness in the workplace, how artists of all types overcome adversity and strengthen their mental fitness, and our mental fitness education center, which is there. We've got inspirational, educational, entertaining content across the gamut. So come check it out, pivotalmomentsmedia.com. Keep an eye out for more episodes soon, wherever podcasts can be heard, and have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.